All right. Good evening, everybody.
Amen.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello,
Mm. So happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
I'm going to give this a couple of minutes and then light Hanukkah candles before we begin our exploration of the 28th Psalm. I came to Knoxville to warm up
No kidding.
because believe it or not, Charleston's going through the same kind of cold snap. So that's exciting.
Yes,
Um,
cold, all right.
yeah. So this is
Thank
in
you for
my
the Hanukkah card. It's a lovely card.
for the one I sent to the congregation. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, it's
like smiling kids' faces are very nice.
yeah. No, I appreciate it. Well, there was actually here. Maybe I'll share this real quick. This was on. I put this on Facebook and Instagram, but I will. Let's see. I will. Let's see.
And if Mayor Linda and Richard are there, they are.
Yes, this was last night. So, Eliana on the left, Jonathan on the right,
Yeah,
and in the middle, or I'm going to zoom in very close. You see this little face on my
yeah,
phone? That's Sparrow, who
right.
was FaceTiming all the way from college in Vermont.
That's wonderful.
So I made sure to have, so in a sense, I had all three kids with me.
That's great.
So,
The boy and girl, they're twins, or just they probably
they
not.
both have red hair.
I
Yeah,
know that's pretty unusual. So they're not twins, though.
They're not. I mean, they're more than 3 years apart.
Okay,
So,
whichever one.
yeah, it's kind of fun. So,
yeah, I could FaceTime with my granddaughter to light candles after we get finished. So,
sure,
because she is home in Seattle, home from college. So,
nice. So I figured that would be a fun way to do it. So, anyway, yeah, I mean, let's see who. I mean, you know what? I mean, look, obviously, this is streaming on YouTube also, so we'll. If people need to catch up, they can. Let me reverse my camera so I can do uh, the the Hanukkah, lighting of the Hanukkah. Let's see. The best way to do this would be. I might not be able to angle this so well, but let's see. Da-da-da-dum. There we go. Not bad. Okay. So so I've got my little compact foldable Hanukkah, perfect for travel. And okay, let's see if that works. No, I gotta do this again. This one's being stubborn.
hey, Linda.
Hello.
Hmm.
Really on.
All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem Uvazman hazeh ma'otzur Yeshuati lechana elishabeach tikon beit tefilati Visham Toda Nizaveach, Leetachin Matbeach, Mitzar Hamna Beach, Azegmor Bashir Mizmor, Chanukah Mizbeach, Azegmor Bashir Mizmor, Chanukah Mizbeach. Happy Hanukkah to one and all. Second night.
Yeah.
I was telling this to my kids this morning that that there was a kid that I went to school with when I was little who would refer to the song I just sang, the Mao Tsur, Rock of Ages, that they called it the omelet song because of the line Oz egg more.
Uh-huh.
In other words, more eggs, right? So it's the omelet song. Ha, ha, ha.
Okay.
So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a funny thing. Um, so may the lights of Hanukkah be bright and stamp out so much darkness that we have in
Yeah.
the world right now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's easy for us, but not so easy for all those poor people who are affected, right?
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, it's been a um, this was a tough weekend
It was.
for a lot of different people. I mean, for Jews,
Mhm.
for Americans, and I'm not trying to equate these losses. I'm not trying to say one is more or less tragic than anybody else. Um, the amount of tributes I've seen to the sudden death of Rob Reiner and his wife,
Horrible.
um, and especially since he was just, it's like you don't necessarily think about the all the works of art that he was responsible for, or at least partially responsible for, and also a nice Jewish boy too. Um, you know,
Mensch.
a mensch, absolutely a mensch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spoke up for those who had no voice. Really. And like even if you didn't like, whether or not you agreed with his politics, I mean, he cared about people less fortunate. And you don't have to be on one side of the aisle or another to appreciate that.
His wife
So,
was the same age as me,
oh yeah. Wow.
10 years younger than him.
I actually saw something I saw this video which he was giving an interview about the movie When Harry Met Sally,
Mhm.
which had, one of the loveliest happy endings that and but the original ending, according to this interview, was that they wouldn't wind up together. Was that they were friends and they would kind of go their separate ways when it came to romantic stuff. Um, but then he met the woman the one he was married to for, however, better part of 40 years. And he met like during the filming and the shooting of it, and he's like, we got to change the ending. And
Yes.
they did. And he was also he was also humble enough to say that that final dramatic romantic speech that Billy Crystal gives, that he's like, I didn't write that. Billy wrote it.
Right, right, right.
And they
So
said that was his mother that said, I'll have what she's having.
that is true. That is true. It was caught off camera, because his mom was an extra in the scene, and then it's like, okay, we have to keep that. We have to keep that. So, all right, all right. So look, one of my favorite writers wrote today, um, you know, thank God his movies live on forever.
Yeah.
Thank God his art lives
Yeah.
on forever, and that's
I
just
didn't
something.
realize he did so many movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he did a lot of, a lot of things. So, uh, and so yes,
You may miss of two of your participants. They may come late or not at all. Mary Linda's doctor was running late, and Richard was driving her. So because she was having her eye injection,
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah,
So,
look, I'll look for them to
so
hopefully
they may follow up or may not, depending on however long it took.
okay, okay. Well, hope they join in, or regardless, maybe they'll watch.
Told them I would let you know if they weren't on when we started.
Yeah,
Are you at the synagogue?
I'm at the synagogue. I got
Oh,
here
okay.
I got to Knoxville about 4 hours ago.
Wow.
So
Well,
Yeah, there was some confusion about what's going to be on it.
sure.
at least
Uh,
we didn't have any bad weather. So
First, I mean,
I mean, it's
too bad.
it's cold, but
it's cold.
but the no, I didn't deal with any ice or anything like that. So
It's,
all right, we are on Psalm number 28. And this one's relatively short. So imagine we'll be able to get through this. Yeah, okay. Um, like the previous psalm, like Psalm 27, this was it begins with the word LeDavid, but as I think I mentioned last time, Psalm 27, because of its prominent place in our liturgy and just also its overall popularity, that's the one that we typically refer to as LeDavid. So this one begins with the word LeDavid of David, but it isn't necessarily known in popular parlance as LeDavid. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't that the psalm is not it does not have the same merits as Psalm 27. Obviously, it is up to the eye of the beholder as far as which psalms you find the most meaningful. So, Linda, could you do just the English on the screen, verses 1 and 2?
okay. O Eternal One, I call to you. My rock, do not disregard me. For if you hold aloof from me, I shall be like those gone down into the pit. Listen to my plea for mercy when I cry out to you, when I lift my hands toward your inner sanctuary.
Okay, okay. So I can't help but notice, and maybe it's just a coincidence in the timing of when we're doing this. Um, this phrasing at the end of verse 1, those gone down into the pit, that this past Shabbat we read of the beginning of the Joseph story, in which, among other things, he is placed in a pit a couple different times, actually. He's placed in a pit by his brothers, and then when he is imprisoned, he is placed in a low spot. And that low spot is actually where he is when the Torah portion for this Shabbat begins. So, it kind of works in that sense. So just a little observation here. Um, uh, what so there's actually a little bit of wordplay here. If you look in the Hebrew in the first verse, the second line here, it says al techerash, and then later on in that line, pen techeshe, right? Um, so al techerash means do not disregard, at least in this translation. And pentecheshe means to hold aloof. But techerash and techeshe, I mean, they don't rhyme, but they are similar sounding, at least in some ways. Now, alter translates those verbs as, instead of don't disregard or don't hold aloof. He instead translates them as do not be deaf, and lest you be mute. So it's this. So it's a pun really having to do with the senses more than anything else. And he writes, the Hebrew uses a pun. To follow the logic of the punning language, should God turn a deaf ear to the supplicant, God will not answer the supplicant's prayer and hence will be mute. In associative logic, the supplicant himself will then perish, becoming forever silent like all the legions of the dead, and hence incapable of imploring God or praising God. In this psalm, he does both, because as elsewhere, the supplication turns into a thanksgiving psalm from verse 6 to the end. Um, so, in other words, don't don't be deaf. Don't be deaf and mute toward me. Um, because if you decide to do that, God, then I will become deaf and mute because I will perish and therefore unable to hear, to talk, to do anything to praise you. We've talked about this before, right? This idea that the dead cannot praise God. And so we have this appeal to we have this great appeal to God, right? This great appeal, um, almost to God's pride, if you will, right? If you let the people who would praise you die, then there will be no one left to praise you. It is so. In other words, God, for your own sake, act on my behalf. Um, Sorry, does somebody have a comment or question?
I'm sorry.
Go for it. Go for it.
No, I wasn't making a comment.
No worries, no worries. Okay, just want to make sure. I can't. I mean, the way I have my screen right now, I can't see your face, so it's not a worry.
I've got a question though.
Go for it. Go for it.
Before you had compared this to Joseph, I would have thought this meant hell. But obviously, Joseph wasn't in hell once they got him out, and his brothers couldn't put him in hell if they didn't unless they killed him somehow.
Sure,
So I
sure.
don't have any idea know what the pit means now.
Right. So what does the pit mean in this case? So the pit refers. So it's so this has to do with biblical theology regarding the afterlife, which is in itself kind of an oxymoron because there really is little to no theology when it comes to any kind of afterlife. Um, if anything, there is a sense that the afterlife is basically a nonentity. But if you were to compare it to something, it would essentially be comparable to Hades, to the Greek idea of an underworld, in which essentially it's a dark place where people sleep eternally. So
Is
in that,
it also a well? Is it a well, Rabbi?
is it a well? So a bore, which is
Yeah,
the Hebrew word there, a
yeah.
bore, yeah, a bore typically, I mean, yeah, I mean, it could be a well, but I mean, I feel like when we refer to a bore in certainly in biblical and Talmudic language, we're talking about literally like a hole in the ground that somebody falls into. There are actually numerous Talmudic tractates about, and it just kind of, it's funny because it rhymes, about a shore that falls into a bore, meaning if one's ox falls into a hole that, if you're walking along and basically there's the ancient equivalent of a pothole, right?
Mm.
And your ox falls into the hole. Well, you know, who is held responsible for any damage that the owner suffers, that the ox suffers, who's responsible for that. So it gets, into matters of civil damages. And so that's, the shore and the boar, and it rhymes, which we got a kind of a kick out of when we learned about it when we were in high school. It also reminded us that a Talmud teacher should never begin one's lesson by reviewing that particular part of the tractate, because this one day one of my teachers made the mistake of saying, "Okay, everyone, what is a bore?" And of course, one of my classmates said, "This class," right? Not nice at all. But yeah, but not the sort of thing you want to tempt teenagers with, I would suggest.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's
Well,
like,
this I think you're just projecting it. If Al was down in the pit, but he's not saying he is. But so that could be lots of things. But what was the pit that Joseph was in? I mean, I've
so
heard the thing like Gilda was saying it was a well, but I don't know. It seemed like that kind of run a perfectly good wells. I guess it'd be a dry well, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, so what was Joseph's pit? I mean, there are a couple different pits. I mean, one is the one that the brothers stick him in when they're trying to figure out, all right, do we want to kill him? Do we want to sell him into slavery? What do we want to do with this guy? That was the first one. And I don't know what the purpose of that well was, but we do know from the Torah that there was no water in that particular pit. Right? Like it says specifically, there was no water in it. I read that Torah reading on Saturday, so I'm like there was no water in it. With the second pit, we're talking about a prison, and now you would think that there would be some access to food and water, or at least someone would bring the prisoners food and water, because you would think that at least that I mean they were keeping them alive, so they were not starving themselves. But it's just something to kind of so yeah so neither one, I would guess, would necessarily be a well, at least your typical watering hole, if you will.
Maybe more a cistern or something like that.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And but when it comes to a cistern, I mean, Joseph didn't know a lot about cisterns. I mean, because he had 11 brothers and only one cistern. Sorry. That was a silly joke. Okay. So, okay. Mary Linda, welcome. I know you had the eye treatment. I'm not going to make you read. Um, okay. So in other words, God, please, hear me, regard me, because um, you don't want me to be like those in a pit where, whether they're alive or not, are not in a position uh, to worship God to the fullest extent. Um, Now, this next part, you know, crying out to God when I lift up my hands, right? Um, Alter comments, this is, of course, a gesture of prayer abundantly attested to in a variety of ancient Near Eastern texts and drawings. In other words, um, like when people would try to entreat God, they would go like this, right?
Right.
Not unlike other people who have, who would do so. Um, so and again, it recalls this idea that I find very appealing when it comes to matters of prayer, which comes from a different psalm. I'm forgetting where at the moment, but this phrase, "Out of the depths I call to you."
Yeah.
So we see this image of someone in a low place extending one's arms, like God, I'm trying to reach you, but I'm all the way down here. Would you please? Please
Right.
find favor in the one who is reaching out to you from the lowest point. Um, So, okay. Now, let's see. Gilead, could you do 3 and 4, please?
There we go. Do not count me with the wicked and evildoers who profess goodwill towards their fellows, while malice is in their heart. Pay them according to their deeds, their malicious acts, according to their handiwork, pay them. Give them their deserts.
Okay. So, uh, so now, don't count me with the wicked. So let's see, is it going to say meaning of Hebrew? Okay, right. Meaning of Hebrew is uncertain. The translation, the altered translation that this one has is don't drag me off. Don't drag me off with the wicked and evildoers. Alter translates it as don't pull me down with the wicked and the wrongdoers. In other words, don't let me be dragged down to their level. Right? We talk about people who feel that they have been that they are stooping to somebody else's lower place, or they are forced to lower themselves for other people, to where other people are in a place that they don't want to be. All of those, I mean, so those sentiments kind of all kind of weave together. In other words, like um, there are people here who do not represent the values that I represent. Don't force me. Don't uh, don't drag me down to their levels. Um, but what makes them so bad? Well, they're ones who profess goodwill toward their fellows while malice is in their heart. So it's not just that they are being malicious, it's that they are being malicious and deceptive about it. They say one thing and they feel another way. Um, and then um, so then you have what should be done instead, um, to that they be paid according to their deeds. In other words, don't um, evaluate people based on what they do, not necessarily what they say. um, we speak sometimes about people who, let's say, to use an expression, they talk a good game, but do they actually live up to it? Do they actually walk the walk? Um, so what these enemies are being accused of is essentially talking the talk but not walking the walk. And so God see through those who are talking a good game but aren't really living up to the lofty ideas that they speak of. And then it tells them to, then it tells God to give them a lot of sugar. Oh no, that's a different dessert. Sorry, different dessert.
Right. Well, we say to somebody gets their just desserts, right?
They're just desserts, exactly, exactly. And of course, if I mention that to my kids, they're like, "Oh, I'll just have dessert. That's fine. I'm happy to just do that." No, no. In all seriousness, yeah. So it's like, so give them what's coming to them. And give them, and based on what they actually have done, not just what they talk about. Um, all right. So, in the next little bit. So, I mean, I want to give you. I'm happy to give you a chance to read, but I know you haven't in the past. I don't want to force you.
No, I'll just continue to pass.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I just wanted to, yeah, just wanted to see it. Okay. Going forward, we'll just like if you want to read, just let me know. Happy to accommodate you, but I'm of course happy to have you listen. All that is good. Okay. Linda, could you do? Can I go back to you? Could you do 5, 6, 7?
Okay. For they do not consider God's deeds, the work of divine hands. May God tear them down, never to rebuild them. Blessed is God who listens to my plea for mercy. God is my strength and my shield, the one in whom my heart trusts. I was helped and my heart exulted, so I will give glory with my song.
Terrific. Okay, thanks. Okay, so 5 is really a continuation of 4, right? The people who are should be treated according to their deeds, should be, give them what they deserve because they are not, these are not people who think of, these are not God-fearing people. These are not people who think of God, right? And then you have this little statement, tear them down, never to rebuild them, make sure that they are, that their downfall is permanent. Now we jump into the Thanksgiving portion of the Psalm with verse 6. And as Alter indicates, his comment is this line strongly marks the turning point of the poem. The imploring, hear the sound of my pleading, is now an accomplished fact. In other words, in verse 2, the narrator said, listen, hear me, don't ignore me, listen to the sound of my pleading. And guess what happens by verse 6? God's done it. Ask and you shall receive. Right. So in a sense, I mean, you talk about a quick turnaround. Turnaround from between verse 2 and verse 6 is swift, at least in terms of our reading it. So you know, now we've gone from pleading to praising. And in this celebration, um, this idea of, all right, I'm going to, I'm going to now show my appreciation, as Alter comments. I'm going to show my appreciation with song. A comment to make with all this is that what we are seeing in the psalm, and in the psalms in general, and this one, I would say quite specifically, what we are seeing is um, a an important shift in the way that people are expressing themselves in terms of worship, in terms of prayer. If you don't, if you were to um, eliminate the Psalms from the Hebrew Bible, you would think that there are very few mechanisms for prayer in the Hebrew Bible, and that's because besides Psalms, there aren't a lot. That there really is a reliance on the sacrificial system. The Psalms represent the bridge between the sacrificial system and our system of worship today.
Yeah.
Um, as we've talked about and will continue to mention, the Psalms are certainly intertwined with the system of sacrificing, and many times talking about the importance of sacrifices in the day-to-day lives of the Jewish people. But this idea that you sing to God to show your appreciation is quite different than, let's say, the book of Leviticus, where there's really no singing in terms of worshiping God, at least not that I can think of. There's little to no singing. It's really just, how do you show your emotions, your appreciation, your repentance, any number of things. You do it with your actions. You bring the actual sacrifice. And as this psalm indicates, yeah, that still matters, right? Remember, the wicked people, the enemies spoken of in this psalm, are people who um, need to be evaluated based on what they actually do and not what they say. Um, but the Psalms are now giving our ancestors and then later us the opportunity to truly to truly actually um, uh, be able to do more than just actions in order to show our appreciation, to show our emotions. We can also do it through words and through art.
Mhm.
Um,
I remember from my studies when I was working on my book, there are more than 250 quotations from Psalms in the Siddur.
yeah.
It's probably the Orthodox Siddur that they were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Orthodox Siddur, I would say, has more content in it than Siddurim of other movements. That's because I would say there is overall a a lengthier expectation
Right.
to say a bunch of stuff, to say a bunch of things. Um, so let's see. So Gilia, could you wrap up the content of this verses 8 and 9?
God is their strength and a stronghold for the deliverance of our anointed ruler. Deliver and bless your very own people, tend them and sustain them forever.
Okay, so we're giving more Thanksgiving in verse 8, and then 9 we're kind of going back to a request. Let's see what this is about. This is a little awkward. Um, uh, where it says Adonai Oz Lamo,
Hmm.
it's a little awkward. And so there are different sources as to what this phrase actually means to convey. God is their strength, and then there are others who have an alternate text, which is like um, instead of Oz Lamo, it's Oz le Amo. Um, Alter comments in the consonantal Hebrew text. This is a difference of just one letter, and added ayin that an ancient scribe might easily have dropped in copying. This reading then makes a neat parallelism with the second verset, right? So, in other words, if we understand God is the strength of God's people and a stronghold for the deliverance of our anointed ruler, that seems to make a little more of a complete thought than God is their strength. Well, who's the they that we are speaking of specifically? That's the thing that other versions of this text are trying to cope with. Um, Now, what uh, what is also striking, according to Alter, is um, the fact that we have been talking about up until verse 8, we were talking about um, individual deliverance, right? That, about one person's deliverance from evildoers. And now in verse 8, we're getting a sort of a national point of view. Um, Alter's comment is the national political perspective of this entire line was not evident earlier in the poem. Either it is an editorially introduced ending drawn from a repertory of stock phrases used for codas, or the speaker imagines a seamless continuity between divine intervention to aid the individual and the nation. So either this is just something that was tacked on later to just expand the meaning of this particular reading, or um, or this is something a little bit different, where this is the fact that or maybe the idea that the narrator is trying to convey that, okay, once we've talked about individual deliverance, you don't have to make such a leap to talking about national deliverance. So it's kind of a natural progression, would be the other possible thought. So um regardless of which one you makes more sense, we have gone from an individual struggle to a statement of national, at least national goals, national desires, and that is very much informed in verse 9, where it says, now we're talking about, deliver and bless your very own people. And you see once again, and Alter speaks to this, that the idea of tending them, right?
Mhm.
And sustaining them forever, right? Tending them, it's like it's a pastoral context.
Right.
Now, verse 9 is great, is really, can be done, it can be done really fun,
Yes, we sing it.
right?
Yeah.
Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachlatecha urim v'nasim ad ha'olam, right? We sing this quite a bit during Sukkot. Deliver or save and bless your very own people, tend them and sustain them forever. And the popular tune, or at least the one that I usually do, Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachlatecha urem v'nasem ad ha'olam. Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachlatecha urem v'nasem ad ha'olam. Okay, now a little bit of trivia regarding all this is that this verse is popular, and it is popular certainly in contemporary Jewish communities because of the number of words in Hebrew that this verse has. There are 10 words total in this verse, and 10 is one of those numbers that comes up over and over again. 10 being one of its most prominent uses is the number of Jewish adults that one needs to make a minyan. And I'm going to sort of stop the sharing here for a second because I'll want to make sure that I'm, sort of showing this. So there is an ideal in there is an ideal in when we are trying to determine if we have a minyan, if we have 10 Jewish adults, to count, but not to count the individuals. You're not supposed to count and go 1, 2, all right, let me count the people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're not supposed to do that. Because there is something from the second book of Samuel, and I will be getting to this on my blog when we get to this chapter, that in which David is supposed to sort of, David counts his troops and a plague befalls them. And God says, you're not supposed to count people. I don't remember offhand why that's such a bad thing. Hopefully, I will rediscover that when I return to that chapter to write about it, when that, sometime in coming weeks. But this idea that you're not supposed to count people remains. So you're not supposed to go, all right, let's count the people. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're supposed to do any number of other things. You can go. Some people do not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. You can do that. Or some people instead they'll look at people and they will give each of them a word. In other words, you don't point at somebody and say one. You point at them and say a word. Well, what's a familiar phrase that has 10 words? This particular verse.
Mhm.
And so you'll see people
Mhm.
counting to make sure there's a minion. And you'll see them point at different people go, Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachlatecha urem v'nasim. Like they'll do that. And that's considered to be a shortcut to counting for a minion. You basically give each one, each adult Jew a one of those. You'll point at each one. So from there's a joke. The joke is, why does a Hasidic person, why do Hasidic synagogues need 15 Jews for a minyan?
Is that true?
It's not, but look, but let's, all right. So, but the joke is, why do they need it? Because they're looking around the room and they're going, Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, urem, 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 urem v'nasem ad ha'olam.
Is there a reason for this, or just a rule?
So the joke. So the reason why. So the joke is that the sort of the point of the point of the joke is that Hasidim, they're always singing. They're always, they're always singing, and they're always, yeah, like they're always like, and they're elongating songs by singing and singing again and again and again. That's that's kind of like the sort of the point of the joke. And so, in other words, instead of doing what quote unquote normal Jews, and again, I use that in parentheses, I'm not saying anybody's normal or not normal, but according to the rest of the Jews who basically just look at people and go, Hoshia et amecha uvarech, and like in other words, because there are 10 words in that verse and you need 10 for a minyan, and they just, do it that way. Because Hasidim are so they're so sing-songy, and they're so, they're like, oh, we need 15 because they're just singing all the time. That's the point of, that's sort of the point of the joke. So it's anyway, so just a little bit of trivia regarding that verse. And and honestly, because it's so upbeat, and frankly, it's a fun, I mean, I think it's a pretty fun tune. Because it's so upbeat and fun, then you have it's actually a very common song sung for Simchat Torah. I would say that's one of the popular ones, that when we are dancing with the Torah scrolls at the holiday of Simchat Torah, I feel like that song is sort of a go-to. At least it certainly is for me. And it's and one of the reasons why it's a go-to is one of the other reasons is that we've been singing it throughout Sukkot, and Sukkot is immediately precedes Simchat Torah. So it's like, all right, what's a fun tune we've been singing? Oh, we'll do this one.
Is
But
there a
good.
reason why you can't just count, or is this a rule that just the same
Yeah.
way that 10's a rule? I don't know there's a reason for it, just is.
So again, I have to look back at the second book of Samuel because that's where that's where this taboo originates from. Um, but I don't remember what the reason is. I mean, whether it has something to do with, is it something to do with, idolatry or something else? I'm not entirely I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I will try to find out, and you'll be able to read about. Either I'll remember to talk about it the next time we have class, or I will talk, or I will when we get to that particular chapter in the in my blog, I will talk about it then. So I will get to it. I will get to it hopefully sometime soon. Um, Other thoughts or questions? Um, uh, little housekeeping to finish up. We are doing, our next Psalms class will be on Monday, January 12th.
Right.
Monday, January 12th, and then again on um, Monday, the 26th of January. Um, Monday the 12th. If you want to come to the synagogue in person, you may feel free to do so. You are also welcome to use Zoom as always, whatever you like. But I will be in town again on the 12th. Other bit of and Psalm 29 that we're getting. I mean that's another biggie. So I would not miss I would not miss January 12th. If you can, please do make sure to come if you can. Um, uh, I will be doing lunch and learn this Wednesday, 11:30 to 12:30. I will be at the synagogue as well as on Zoom, and Judaism 101 this Sunday at 10 a.m., both in person and on Zoom. So I will be engaging in all those things in person as I am in town. And then, perfect timing, my Chanukiah, the candles burned and thank goodness we get another 6 nights to enjoy the light.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Brooks, yeah, be well, everybody, and we'll see you. Hopefully, we'll see you over the course of the week.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll come in person on
Thank
Wednesday.
you.
Fantastic.
Thank you,
All
Abby.
right, take care.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah.